Hello, people. My name's Ryan, and I'm here to talk about how two people I trusted most in the world shattered everything I believed in. My wife, Anna, and my best friend, Lucas, were my pillars, the people who grounded me when life got tough. They were my constants, or so I thought. Lucas and I go way back. We met in high school, two awkward kids trying to find our place in the world. From the moment we started talking, we just clicked. He was like the brother I never had. Over the years, we became inseparable, graduating together, celebrating our wins, picking each other up after losses. He was the guy who always had my back no matter what. When my dad passed away during college, Lucas was the one who stayed with me for days, making sure I ate, talked, and didn't fall apart completely. Then there's Anna. I met her at a summer barbecue about 8 years ago. She was standing by the grill, laughing with a group of friends, and I couldn't take my eyes off her. She had this magnetic energy, confident, witty, with a smile that made you feel like you were the center of the universe. We hit it off instantly, and within months we were inseparable. She was everything I thought I wanted in a partner: smart, ambitious, and fiercely independent. When I decided to propose to Anna, it was Lucas who helped me plan the whole thing. He helped me pick out the ring, coordinated with her friends to set up the perfect spot by the lake, and even stood by my side when I got down on one knee. At our wedding, he gave a speech that had everyone, including me, tearing up. He called Anna the sister he never had and said how lucky I was to have her. I believed every word he said. The three of us became this tight-knit circle. Lucas was like family to both of us, always there for birthdays, holidays, and random dinners. Anna would say, "You're lucky to have a friend like him," and I felt lucky too. If he wasn't helping me fix something around the house, he was hanging out with us, sharing jokes and stories. I never thought twice about how close he and Anna had become. If anything, I thought it was a good thing. They got along, and I trusted them both completely. Our life in Chicago felt solid. Anna worked as a marketing director for a big firm, and I managed operations for a logistics company. We weren't rolling in money, but we were comfortable. We'd saved enough to buy a nice townhouse in the suburbs, close to work and friends. Life was good. Or at least it seemed that way. Looking back, there were probably signs that I missed. Times when Anna would laugh a little too hard at Lucas's jokes, or when Lucas would find excuses to drop by unannounced. But I brushed those thoughts aside. They were just friends. And besides, Lucas was like a brother to me. The idea that he could ever cross a line never even entered my mind. For years, I truly believed I had the perfect balance: a supportive wife, a loyal best friend, and a life I was proud to call my own. We had our ups and downs like anyone else, but I always thought we'd face them together. I trusted them both with everything I had. They were the two people I believed would never betray me. It wasn't until much later that I realized how naive I'd been. The little things I'd ignored started to pile up, forming a picture I couldn't unsee. The cracks in my perfect life were always there. I just didn't want to notice them. It started small, little things that didn't seem significant at the time, but began to add up. Lucas had always been a regular visitor to our house, but recently his visits had become more frequent. He was dropping by even when I wasn't home, which wasn't unusual at first. Lucas was like family after all, but something about the timing felt off. He wasn't there to see me anymore. He was there for Anna. Anna, of course, had an explanation for everything. "He's helping me plan the renovations," she'd say, or "We're figuring out the details for your birthday party." She always made it sound so casual, as if I should be thankful for how invested Lucas was in our lives. "You're lucky to have a friend like him," she'd remind me, with a tone that felt oddly dismissive. At first, I brushed it off. Maybe I was overthinking things. Maybe I was just stressed from work and letting it cloud my judgment, but then I started noticing more. Their conversations were lighter, more playful than I remembered. Lucas would crack a joke and Anna would laugh, too hard, too long, like he was the funniest guy in the room. It wasn't obvious, but I felt it. Something had shifted. One evening, Lucas stayed late after dinner. We were sitting in the living room and I stepped out to take a phone call. When I came back, I found them leaning in close, their heads together as Lucas whispered something. Anna looked up at me quickly, her cheeks flushed. "Just a silly joke," she said, brushing it off. Lucas chuckled, but I noticed the way his smile faltered when I sat down. Still, I told myself I was imagining things. This was Lucas, my best friend. He'd been through everything with me. And Anna, my wife, the woman I trusted most in the world. There was no way they'd betray me, right? But the feeling wouldn't go away. I started watching for signs, subtle changes in Anna's behavior. She'd always been independent, and now she seemed more distant, distracted. She'd laugh at her phone, lock the screen when I walked into the room. When I asked her what was so funny, she'd shrug it off. "Work memes," she'd say, or "just Karen from the office being ridiculous." And then there were the phone calls. Lucas had always gone through me if he needed something, but now he was calling Anna directly. One evening I saw his name pop up on her phone. She smiled as she answered, walking into the other room to take the call. When she came back, I asked what it was about. "Big plans," she said, her tone breezy. "Relax, Ryan. You're so paranoid lately." Paranoid? That word stung, but I let it go. I didn't want to be the jealous husband who saw problems where there weren't any. I wanted to trust her. I wanted to trust Lucas. But the little things kept piling up, and with every passing day, that trust started to crack. Around this time, things at work started to take a nosedive. My company was going through a rough patch, and layoffs seemed to be lurking around every corner. The stress was eating away at me, and I felt like I was barely holding it together. Lucas, as always, was my sounding board. "Don't worry, brother," he'd say over beers on a Friday night. "You're one of the hardest working guys I know. If anyone can come out of this stronger, it's you." He had a way of making me feel like things would be okay, even when they weren't. It was one of the reasons I valued his friendship so much, but looking back, there was something unsettling about how readily he offered his support. It wasn't like before. There was a subtle undercurrent, a tension I couldn't quite put my finger on. Anna was supportive too, at least on the surface. She'd ask me how work was going and remind me to stay positive. Trust you. But her questions felt more like routine check-ins than genuine concern. When I'd try to open up about my fears, she'd quickly change the subject or find an excuse to walk away. "You're overthinking it," she'd say. "Just focus on what you can control." Her dismissive attitude hurt, but I didn't press her. I figured she was just tired from work herself. Still, her growing distance didn't help. She spent more and more time on her phone or running errands, and when she was home, she seemed preoccupied, like her mind was somewhere else. Lucas, on the other hand, seemed to have all the time in the world. He was constantly checking in, asking how I was holding up. "You know I've got your back," he'd say, clapping a hand on my shoulder. "Whatever you need." There were moments when I couldn't help but compare the two of them. Anna's indifference and Lucas's unwavering support. It felt wrong to think it, but sometimes I found myself wondering why my best friend seemed to care more about my struggles than my wife did. And then there were the moments when Lucas and Anna were together. The three of us would have dinner, and while Lucas would make an effort to cheer me up, Anna would barely say a word. Instead, she and Lucas would exchange these subtle looks, inside jokes that I wasn't part of. It was small, almost imperceptible, but it was there. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being left out of something, even in my own home. One evening, I came home late from work to find Lucas and Anna sitting at the kitchen table, laughing over a bottle of wine. "What's the occasion?" I asked, trying to mask the irritation in my voice. "No occasion," Lucas said with his easy smile. "Just thought I'd keep Anna company while you were out." Anna chimed in, "You've been so busy lately, it's nice to have someone to talk to." Her words cut deeper than I expected. Wasn't I supposed to be the one she turned to? The one she confided in? I didn't say anything, but that night, as I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, I couldn't shake the thought that something was wrong, something more than just my work stress or Anna's distance. Lucas's support, Anna's detachment, their growing closeness, it all felt like pieces of a puzzle I couldn't quite put together. But the picture was starting to take shape, and I wasn't sure I wanted to see what it was. The moment everything started to unravel happened on an otherwise uneventful Saturday afternoon. I'd taken our dog out for a walk in the park, trying to clear my head from the stress of work and the lingering doubts about Anna and Lucas. When we got back, I heard voices coming from the kitchen. At first, it didn't register as anything unusual. Anna and Lucas were always chatting about something or other, but as I got closer, I heard the tension in their voices. They were speaking in hushed tones, almost whispering, as if they didn't want anyone to overhear. "We have to be careful," Lucas said, his voice low but firm. "I know," Anna replied quickly, "but he doesn't suspect anything." My heart skipped a beat. My gut twisted into a knot so tight it felt like I couldn't breathe. "He doesn't suspect anything?" I stood frozen, just outside the kitchen, trying to process what I just heard. My brain scrambled for explanations, rationalizations. Maybe they were planning something, a surprise for my birthday, a party. It had to be something harmless, right? But the tone of their voices, the way they seemed so cautious, told a different story. I debated walking into the kitchen right then and demanding answers, but something held me back. If they were hiding something, barging in unprepared wouldn't get me the truth. I needed to be smarter about this. When I finally stepped into the kitchen, they both froze. Lucas was leaning against the counter, his arms crossed, while Anna stood by the sink holding a glass of water. They exchanged a quick glance before turning their attention to me. "Hey man," Lucas said casually, his smile a little too forced. "How was the park?" "Fine," I said, keeping my tone neutral. "What were you two talking about?" Anna was quick to jump in. "Just some ideas for your birthday," she said, her voice bright and chipper. "Lucas had a few suggestions, right, Lucas?" "Yeah, just brainstorming," Lucas added, nodding along. The explanation sounded plausible enough, but I couldn't ignore the way Anna's hand trembled as she set her glass down. Lucas wouldn't meet my eyes for more than a second before looking away. I decided to let it slide, at least for the moment. I didn't want to tip my hand too soon. If they were lying to me, and deep down I knew they were, I needed to figure out exactly what they were hiding before I confronted them. That night, as Anna slept beside me, I stared at the ceiling, replaying the conversation over and over in my head. "We have to be careful. He doesn't suspect anything. What the hell were they talking about? What were they hiding from me? I wanted to believe that my worst fears weren't true. After all, this was Lucas, my best friend, and Anna, the woman I'd vowed to spend the rest of my life with. Surely I was just overthinking things, but as much as I tried to convince myself otherwise, the doubts wouldn't go away. Something wasn't right, and I was determined to find out what it was. That strange conversation I overheard between Anna and Lucas had me spiraling, but I still wasn't ready to confront them. Not without more proof. I knew I'd need something undeniable if I was going to uncover the truth. So I stayed quiet, watching, waiting, and paying closer attention to everything happening around me. One night I came home earlier than usual. I told Anna I'd be working late, but I managed to finish up early and decided to surprise her. When I walked through the front door, I immediately noticed the sound of laughter coming from the living room. It wasn't just Anna's, it was Lucas's too. I stepped into the room, and there they were, sitting on the couch with a half-empty bottle of wine on the coffee table between them. They stopped laughing the moment they saw me. The atmosphere in the room shifted so quickly it felt like I'd walked into a wall. "What's going on?" I asked, forcing my voice to speak calm. Anna was the first to speak, her voice a little too chipper. "Oh, hey, Lucas just dropped by to talk about your birthday party plans." We were brainstorming ideas. I glanced at Lucas. He was leaning back on the couch, trying to look casual, but I could see the tension in his posture. "Yeah, just trying to make sure it's a celebration to remember," he added, flashing a weak smile. "Wine seems a little over the top for brainstorming," I said, crossing my arms. Anna laughed nervously. "Oh, come on, Ryan. It's just a glass of wine. Don't make it a big deal." I stood there for a moment, staring at both of them. Everything about the scene screamed that something was off, but I couldn't put my finger on it. Instead of pressing further, I nodded and said, "All right, well, don't let me interrupt." And I turned and walked into the kitchen, pretending to grab a snack while my mind raced. From the kitchen, I could hear their voices drop to a whisper. They were trying to act normal, but I could feel the tension from the other room. It was like they were walking on eggshells, afraid I'd pick up on something they weren't ready to admit. That night, when Lucas left, I tried to talk to Anna about it. "You've been spending a lot of time with Lucas lately," I said, casually, watching her reaction. She shrugged, not meeting my eyes. "Well, he's your best friend. I thought you'd be happy we get along so well." "Getting along is one thing," I replied. "Having wine and late-night hangouts when I'm not here is something else." She rolled her eyes, her tone shifting to irritation. "You're being paranoid, Ryan. Lucas is like a brother to me. What are you even suggesting?" Her defensiveness only made my suspicions grow. But I didn't push it further. I knew she'd never admit to anything outright, not without something concrete to back me up. That's when I realized I needed to dig deeper. The excuses, the dismissive tone, the weird moments, it was all adding up to something I couldn't ignore anymore. The cracks in their story were becoming too big to overlook. I decided it was time to start piecing the truth together myself. After that night, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was deeply wrong. The casual way Anna brushed off my concerns, the uncomfortable silence when Lucas was around, it all pointed to something bigger. I knew I had to confront one of them, but I wasn't sure where to start. Lucas seemed like the weaker link, so I decided to approach him first. I called him up one afternoon, asking if he could meet me for a drink after work. "Sure, man," he said, sounding his usual laid-back self. "Everything okay?" "Yeah, just need to talk about some stuff," I replied, keeping my tone neutral. I didn't want to tip him off. We met at a bar we'd been going to for years. Lucas greeted me with a smile and a pat on the back like nothing was wrong. We ordered a couple of beers, and for the first half hour, I let him ramble about work, sports, and whatever else came to mind. But as the conversation dragged on, I couldn't hold back anymore. "So," I said, setting my beer down, "what's going on between you and Anna?" Lucas froze, his hand halfway to his drink. He recovered quickly, though, forcing a laugh. "What are you talking about? Nothing's going on." I leaned forward, locking eyes with him. "Don't lie to me, Lucas. I've noticed the way you two act around each other. The private conversations, the late night wine sessions, the looks. If there's something you need to tell me, now's the time. He shook his head, his smile faltering. Ryan, come on. You're my best friend. Do you really think I'd do something like that to you? Well, that's exactly why I'm asking, I shot back, because I never thought you'd betray me, but lately everything about the two of you feels off, he sighed, running a hand through his hair. Look, I don't know what you think is happening, but I promise you, there's nothing going on. Anna and I are just friends, man. That's it. His words sounded convincing, but something about his body language didn't sit right with me. He couldn't hold eye contact for more than a few seconds, and his tone was just a little too defensive. I wanted to believe him, I really did, but my gut told me he wasn't being completely honest. I finished my beer in silence, giving him one last chance to come clean. All right, I said finally. If you say there's nothing going on, I'll take your word for it. But if I find out you're lying to me... I'm not lying, he interrupted, a little too quickly. You're overthinking this, Ryan. Seriously. I nodded, pretending to accept his answer, but deep down I knew I couldn't let it go. Lucas had given me nothing but vague reassurances, and Anna's behavior was still gnawing at me. If they weren't going to give me the truth, I'd have to find it myself. That night, I made a decision. It was time to stop asking questions and start looking for answers. I'd spent too long second-guessing myself, trying to convince myself I was being paranoid. If they weren't going to tell me what was going on, I'd find the proof I needed. I couldn't sit back and wait anymore. The lies, the evasions, the awkward glances, it was all too much. I needed to know the truth, and I needed it straight from the source. That's when I remembered the security cameras I'd installed months ago after a rash of burglaries in our neighborhood. I'd barely thought about them since setting them up, but now they felt like my best chance to get answers. Late one night when Anna was asleep, I sat down with my laptop and logged into the camera system. I'd set up the cameras to cover the living room, the kitchen, and the front door. Nothing invasive, just enough to keep an eye on the main areas of the house. Anna didn't even know they were there. I'd never thought it was worth mentioning. I started combing through the footage, going back over the last couple of weeks. At first, everything seemed normal. Clips of Anna cooking dinner, Lucas dropping by for casual chats. But as I dug deeper, I noticed a pattern. Lucas always seemed to show up when I wasn't home. And he wasn't just dropping by, he was staying for hours. Then I found the clip started with Lucas coming in through the front door, carrying a bottle of wine. Anna greeted him warmly, almost too warmly. They moved to the kitchen, pouring themselves glasses and laughing like they didn't have a care in the world. I fast-forwarded, my stomach tightening as I watched them move from the kitchen to the living room. They sat on the couch, talking quietly. Lucas leaned in close, his hand brushing against hers. Anna didn't pull away. Instead, she smiled, this coy, almost flirtatious smile I hadn't seen in years. And then it happened. Lucas leaned in and kissed her. Not a quick peck, not something you could dismiss as a mistake. This was deliberate, passionate. Anna kissed him back, her hands on his face, pulling him closer. I paused the video, unable to watch any further. My hands were shaking, my chest tight. I felt like I couldn't breathe. I forced myself to continue. In the next clip, they were in the kitchen again, talking in hushed voices. "This is risky," Lucas said, glancing toward the front door. "What if he finds out?" "He won't," Anna replied, her voice calm, almost smug. "Ryan's too busy with work. He doesn't even notice what's right in front of him." Those words hit me harder than the kiss. She didn't just cheat. She thought I was too blind, too stupid to ever figure it out. I sat there in the dark, replaying the footage over and over, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. This was Lucas, my best friend. This was Anna, my wife. The two people I trusted most in the world had betrayed me in the worst possible way. By the time the sun started to rise, I had my proof. There was no denying it now, no more room for excuses or lies. It was time to confront them both. That morning, as I sat at the kitchen table with my coffee, I felt like a stranger in my own home. Anna moved around the kitchen, humming softly as if nothing was wrong. Watching her act so normal after what I'd seen the night before made my stomach turn. My mind raced with a million thoughts. Anger, betrayal, sadness. But above all, I was ready to confront her. She turned to me with a bright smile. "What's up?" I took a deep breath, keeping my voice steady. "We need to talk," her smile faltered. "About what?" "About Lucas. And about what you've been doing when I'm not here." For a split second, her face froze. Then she recovered, putting on that practiced look of innocence I'd come to recognize. "What are you talking about? Lucas is your best friend. What could I possibly be doing?" I pulled out my laptop, setting it on the table between us. "Let me show you." Her eyes widened as I opened the video from the night Lucas came over. The moment she saw herself on the screen, kissing Lucas, laughing at his touch, her face turned pale. She reached for the laptop, but I stopped her. Don't bother, I said coldly. I've already saved copies. Ryan, I can explain, she stammered, her voice shaky. Explain, I snapped, my voice rising. Explain how you've been sneaking around with my best friend. Explain how you've been lying to my face, thinking I'd never find out. Tears welled up in her eyes, but they didn't move me. It wasn't supposed to happen, she said, her voice barely a whisper. It just happened. That's not an explanation, I shot back. That's an excuse. How long has this been going on, Anna? How long have you been betraying? She hesitated, and I could see the wheels turning in her head as she tried to come up with something, anything, to make herself look better. A few months, she admitted finally. But it didn't mean anything, Ryan. It was a mistake. I laughed bitterly. A mistake? You've been sneaking him into my house, drinking my wine, sleeping in my bed, and you call that a mistake? Just then my phone buzzed. It was a message from Lucas. As if on cue, he was checking in to see how things were going. The audacity of it made my blood boil. You know what? I said, standing up. Let's settle this right now. I called Lucas and put him on speaker. When he answered, his voice was as casual as ever. Hey man, what's up? What's up? I repeated, my tone icy. What's up is that I know what you've been doing. I know about you and Anna. There was silence on the other end. Then, finally, he spoke. Ryan, save it, I interrupted. I don't want to hear your excuses. I want you to come over. Now. Lucas tried to protest, but I wasn't having it. You owe me that much, I said. Face me like a man or don't bother calling yourself my friend. An hour later, Lucas was at the house. He walked in looking like a man on his way to the gallows. Anna was sitting on the couch, her face hair-streaked and red. I stood between them, holding the flash drive with the footage in my hand. You two have a lot to answer for, I said, glaring at both of them. So let's hear it. Why? Why would you do this to me? Lucas opened his mouth, but no words came out. Anna stared at the floor, her hands clenched in her lap. Neither of them had anything to say that could make this better. This friendship, this marriage, it's over, I said, my voice firm. I want you both out of my life. You don't deserve a single piece of what I've built. And with that, I turned and walked away, leaving them to sit in the wreckage of their lies. After that confrontation, everything fell apart, just as I knew it would. I didn't bother staying in the same house with Anna after that day. I packed a bag, called a friend, and left to clear my head. Staying there felt unbearable, like trying to breathe in a room that was slowly filling with smoke. The fallout began almost immediately. I filed for divorce the very next day. Anna tried to stop me showing up at the lawyer's office and pleading with me to reconsider. Ryan, please, she begged. I made a mistake, but don't throw everything away. We've built a life together. I stared at her, the woman I'd once loved more than anything, and felt nothing but anger and emptiness. You threw it away, I said simply, not me. Lucas, for his part, tried reaching out multiple times. He left voicemails, sent texts, even wrote me a letter. Each one was some variation of the same excuse. It didn't mean anything. I wasn't thinking. I never wanted to hurt you. But his words meant nothing to me anymore. The damage was done, and there was no coming back from it. The worst part of it all was how this affected my sense of self. For weeks, I felt like a failure, not just as a husband, but as a person. How could I have been so blind? How could I have trusted two people who didn't deserve it? Every time I thought about Anna and Lucas, I was consumed by questions that had no answers. I leaned heavily on my friends during this time. Real friends, the ones who stuck by me when everything came crashing down. They reminded me that this wasn't my fault, that Anna and Lucas's betrayal said more about them than it ever could about me. Slowly, their support began to pull me out of the hole I'd fallen into. The divorce was finalized within months. Anna didn't fight me on much, probably because she knew she was in the wrong. I got to keep the house, and she moved out to live with her sister. I heard through mutual acquaintances that she was struggling, that she'd lost friends over what happened, but I didn't care. I wasn't interested in her redemption arc. As for the man who'd been my best friend was now a ghost, someone I refused to acknowledge. And honestly, it felt good. Letting go of him was like shedding dead weight I hadn't realized I'd been carrying for years. Through all of this, I realized how much I'd been neglecting myself. For so long, my focus had been on being a good husband and a good friend. But where had that gotten me? It was time to start prioritizing my own happiness, my own goals. I started therapy. something I never thought I'd do but quickly realized I needed. Talking to someone unbiased about the betrayal, the anger, and the hurt was like lifting a weight off my chest. It didn't fix everything, but it helped me make sense of the mess I was in and figure out how to move forward. Months have passed since the day I confronted Anna and Lucas, and life has slowly started to take shape again. It hasn't been easy, far from it, but I've found moments of clarity and strength I didn't think I had in me. Looking back, the betrayal feels like a scar, a reminder of what I went through, but no longer the fresh, searing pain it once was. I've come to accept that what happened wasn't my fault. Anna and Lucas made their choices, and those choices reflect on them, not me. That realization took time, but it's been freeing. The house feels different now. It's quiet, almost too quiet sometimes, but it's mine. I've been redecorating, getting rid of things that remind me of them. The couch where they sat together, gone. The wine glasses they used, replaced. It's a small act, but it helps. It's my way of reclaiming the space, of making it a place where I can start fresh. I'm ready. Therapy has been a lifeline. My therapist helped me see that I'd spent so much of my life putting others first, trying to be the perfect husband, the perfect friend, that I'd lost sight of my own needs. I'm learning to set boundaries now, to say no when I need to, and to value myself in ways I never did before. Anna reached out once after the divorce was finalized. She sent me a long email apologizing again and saying she wanted to talk. She claimed she was in therapy too, that she was working on herself and hoped I'd be willing to have a conversation one day. I didn't respond. I don't hate her anymore, but I don't see the point in reopening old wounds. Lucas, he's gone for good. I haven't heard from him in months, and that's exactly how I want it. The man I once called my brother is now just a memory, someone I used to know. Cutting him out of my life was painful at first, but it was necessary. He doesn't deserve a place in my life, and he never will. The best part of all this, I'm finally finding myself again. I've reconnected with old hobbies, playing guitar, hiking, even cooking, which I hadn't done in years. I've met new people, formed new friendships, and started building a life that feels like mine, not one that revolves around someone else's needs. Do I think about what happened? Of course. There are still moments when the memories sneak up on me, when I see a couple laughing together or hear a song that reminds me of Anna. But those moments don't paralyze me anymore. They don't define me. If there's one thing I've learned, it's that betrayal doesn't have to be the end of the story. It's painful, yes, but it's also a chance to rebuild, to create something better, something stronger. I'm not the same person I was before all this happened, but maybe that's a good thing. I'm wiser now, more cautious, but also more self-assured. For anyone out there going through something similar, know this. It gets better. It's not easy and it doesn't happen overnight, but you can come out the other side stronger. You can rebuild. You can heal. And most importantly, you can find peace. Thanks for listening, guys. I didn't expect this to be my story, but here we are. Life has a way of surprising you, sometimes in the worst ways, but sometimes in the best. And for the first time in a long time, I'm hopeful about what's next. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Tell me what you think about that story. Have a good day, and bye.